Up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. My name is Dan Kornhauser.
And I'm Sam Teets.
And thank you guys for tuning in for another edition of the NFL Draft Show here on The Grueling Truth, where legends speak. I want to let you guys know that we're brought to you by betting.net, your best bet for sportsbook and casino sites. And this, everyone, is a very exciting time, both for our show and in the world of the NFL, because the NFL Scouting Combine starts this week. Players are already arriving in Indianapolis. They'll be doing measurements and stuff like that in the early portion of the week. And then second half of the week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they'll be doing position drills and all that good stuff. And that's where a lot of rumors and really the meat of everything is going to be going on. So I'm really excited. Are you ready for the Combine?
No, I'm excited too, because once we get through this, it means a lot more big boards, mock drafts, stuff like that. We got to get one of the final pieces together for this whole puzzle we're looking at.
Now, the NFL Scouting Combine, it happens once a year. It happens pretty much around this time every year, give or take, depending on the calendar, of course. And prospects go out to Indianapolis. They work out for all 32 teams. They did not do it last year because of COVID. They are doing it this year, albeit in a little bit differently. It's not like it can be as open and whatever as it used to be before COVID. But they are still going to have media there. They are going to do all the different testing and stuff like that. They are not going to be in a bubble as the NFL had originally intended by having players stay only at the hotel or only at the stadium. Nothing really in between. Only one or two people per player on their staffs, that sort of stuff. So that stuff's been all cleared out. It's going to be pretty much free reign for the players and for the agents and teams and such. So let's jump right into it, man. There's a lot to cover. I mean, why start anywhere else but quarterback, right? I mean, Pickett has to measure his hands. That's what we're all waiting for. Is Kenny Pickett's hand measurement? Is it going to be over under 9 inches? This is pretty much the only time I've ever been excited to find out if a guy's going to measure over under 9 inches. So I'm pretty excited about this. And I know there are people who are not believers in big hands mattering for quarterbacks. Are you one of those people?
I tend to think it's not a big deal for quarterbacks. Let's put it this way, if you're good at football, you just find a way to win sometimes. If there are plenty of guys in the NFL right now who don't fit your stereotypical builds, don't fit your stereotypical measurements for successful football players. And some of those guys were not on big boards for NFL teams because they did not meet these size requirements, and yet they've come on and been good NFL players. With Kenny Pickett, it might be a little bit different, though. The size hands we're talking about with Kenny Pickett would be a, by far, historical outlier, to the point where it would be a one-of-one situation for a quarterback to come in the modern era with that hand size and be successful. And Kenny Pickett, while a good quarterback and maybe the most pro-ready QB of this group, is not like Joe Burrow coming out. Like it's not something like that where you feel like, oh, this guy's a sure thing to be a great NFL quarterback. Kenny Pickett's not in that range. Mm-hmm. So I think there are going to teams that are going to be looking at this and say, that's enough. If he has bad hand measurements, if he's in that 1% or that 0% percentile at the very bottom of the list, they're just going to take him off the board. Or maybe not have him until the third or fourth round. And I think that will happen. I expect multiple teams to do that, especially if he tests as badly as people are expecting with the hand measurements.
So you really think it's going to be that serious where there might be a team that knocks him down that much because of something like that?
Absolutely. In this quarterback class where there's really no one that separates themselves as the top QB around, and Kenny Pickett has not done that, if you're looking at a one-on-one situation historically where you're one of maybe ever in the past 20 to 30 years to have hand size that small, or you're one of maybe 5 or 6 guys in the past 20 years, 30 years to fall into that category, you're probably going to drop at least a round. And I know it sounds really weird, but again, there are limitations to what you can do in the NFL sometimes with these physical things. I don't usually believe in that stuff, but if it's a historical outlier to this extent, I think there's something there because I don't want to be the team to jump the gun and take that shot and end up getting bitten for it. So I would rather just not take that quarterback, especially in a class like this where they're all kind of bunched together at the back end of the first round or the top of the second round, where there's really not a huge difference between a Kenny Pickett and a Desmond Ridder or something like that. And of course, there are small differences, but again, in terms of overall prospect you're getting, the value of the prospect, I don't think it's that big of a difference to where you would value Kenny Pickett, who might have these physical question marks, versus someone like Desmond Ridder who won't.
Now, with the quarterbacks, for me personally, I'm not going to worry about the hand size. I think that is overblown, and I know what the stats say, and I know what the measurement history says. But I think at some point, that sort of stuff only goes so far. It's looking for an excuse to knock a guy down. If a guy like Pickett, now like you said, he's not a Burrow type prospect where you're going to overlook something like that entirely because the body of work's there, the physical is there, the measurements are there, other measurements are there, this and that, all the other. He's not that type of a prospect. He's not a Trevor Lawrence. He's not an Andrew Luck. He's not one of these other guys. So I guess maybe that might have something to do with it. But if his hands come in a little short, I mean, he never really had a big fumbling problem in college that I can remember of that's going to really knock him down. Nothing that really, for me anyway, is going to affect his grade. I don't know if you think otherwise on that front.
No, the issue with him is he played in Pittsburgh, so he's played in elements before, and he's done fine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of balancing the body of work so far with what he's done with the college ball and the college rules. So what he's going to do in the NFL when he's going to probably be under center a little bit more often, have to deal with the exchange a little bit. And again, like I said, it's not that he's going to come in a little bit short in the hand size. He has the potential to come in and be like a true first percentile quarterback in terms of hand measurements. So he has a chance to be down there historically with some of the worst hand sizes of all time, which could be the issue. It's not so much that, again, you can do it if you have smaller hands, but if you have like historically just ridiculously smaller hands for the quarterback in the NFL, I'd be a little bit worried, and I wouldn't want to take that jump again when there are other quarterbacks out there who are probably going to have graded in around and about the same range.
Now, for the rest of this class, we know that Matt Corral is not going to be participating at all. He's still getting over injury that he suffered at the end of the season. And going into the combine, I still have him as my number one quarterback. I am not knocking him down. I don't care. The tape for me is what puts him up at the top. I don't have to buy in to the electrifying potential of Malik Willis. I don't have to buy in to the pro readiness of a Kenny Pickett, like some of these other NFL teams might have to do for their respective rosters and their situations. They might look at a Malik Willis and say, oh man, he may not be Lamar Jackson, but those physical talents, the speed, the elusiveness, the arm strength, I can mold that. I can work with that. I like that. That's my top quarterback. You might have another team, say like Carolina, for example, or Denver, that's more ready to win right now and looks at Kenny Pickett and says, all right, I know what this guy's going to give me. I have him up as my top quarterback for these reasons, whatever. I don't have to worry about that. I can look at this tape, I can look at these guys, and I can rank them based on that. And for me, Matt Corral's tape still stands. For me, he's still my top quarterback. I have him 1, Malik Willis 2, Kenny Pickett 3 right now. Sam Howell, Carson Strong, and Desmond Ridder. All of them are ranked in my top 50. Corral's the highest at number 24 overall on my big board. Going into the combine, Sam, who is your top quarterback right now? And which one of these guys do you think has the biggest leap that they can make from either a good combine or have a big drop because of a bad combine?
Do I have to pick one? I almost feel like not giving a quarterback one spot, frankly, based on how it's gone this year. Because for me, they are all bunched together. I think they're all close to about the same area. Just going off the big board I had.
Someone's got to be ranked ahead of the other. That's just the way rankings work, baby.
Well, going off the big board I had back January 31st, so a little bit before the Senior Bowl, I had Kenny Pickett 1, and I'm going to change it up a little bit. I had Kenny Pickett 1, Matt Corral 2, Sam Howell 3. I still generally believe in that order. Okay. I'm going to put Malik Willis 4, Desmond Ridder 5, Carson Strong 6, and Bailey Zappi 7, like distant 7th place. Mm-hmm. I think that's my order for now. I do see Malik Willis moving up the board a little bit. I have it very close between the top 4. I'm not a huge fan of Desmond Ridder, honestly. I just haven't been. If you've talked to Mike about Desmond Ridder before, Mike Pastor is not a huge fan of Desmond Ridder. And Mike
that's right.
Does a decent job of quarterback evaluation. So I tend to put a little bit of faith in Mike in that area. But yeah, for me, I said Pickett 1, Corral 2, Sam Howell 3, and Malik Willis QB4, and those guys for me are the guys that are fighting for that QB1 spot.
Now, how much stock do you put in the scouting combine when it comes to the quarterback position?
Very little.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, the Senior Bowl is more applicable because you're putting them in situations they're unfamiliar with. They're playing with guys who, they haven't played with before, similar to what you're doing in the combine, except you actually have pads on. You actually have coaches running the drills as a team of coaches, not just like 1-2 guys. And then you actually get to go play a game. So I think the Senior Bowl, what you're seeing there, is more applicable than the scouting combine per se, unless you're trying to look at someone like Malik Willis's speed or something like that. I could understand you factoring that in perhaps, but for them throwing generally, it's not a huge deal to me because you don't have pads on. If you got them on at the Senior Bowl, that's more important. And the pro day workouts for me are something I carry a little bit more weight for quarterbacks than the combine because you get to work out in a familiar situation with some of your guys who you play with in the past. And for me, some of the stuff you do in those workouts is just more translatable to the game than what you do in the combine for the most part. The combine does have some good passing drills, but there's also some ones that I'm like, well, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter for the modern game. So I think the combine for quarterbacks is probably actually one of the lower important ones, unless you go out there and you're just airmailing passes. As long as you just do kind of stay even and don't airmail balls, then you'll be fine.
Are there any one of these guys that you expect to put up a Zach Wilson type performance where they just wow everybody for whatever arm strength, or they're throwing on the run, or a crazy pass scrambling left off their back foot, throwing right 60 yards downfield on a bullet? Do you see any one of these guys standing out in that sense?
Not in that sense, but I will say if you're looking for a guy who could probably improve his draft stock significantly here, I would look at someone like Skylar Thompson from Kansas State or Caleb Ellaby from Western Michigan. Because, again, we know who the top guys are in this class. We kind of have a general feel from them already. We've seen most of them at the Senior Bowl, so we kind of know what they are. But these guys, Skylar Thompson's at the Shrine Bowl, Caleb Ellaby, he's another guy who I think could move up the board a little bit here with some solid performances because we have not seen them in the premier situations like a Senior Bowl scenario.
Okay. I'm trying to think. So, one thing that stood out to me was I do consensus rankings where I go through like 10 to 12 big boards from around the web. The different ESPNs and CBS and Sporting News and PFF and so on and so forth. And I do about 10 to 12. Right now, I think it's up to 12 total analysts, big boards, where I go through their top 100s. I got it all set up on a spreadsheet. It's pretty fun. And one thing I've noticed is a guy like Sam Howell is really all over the board. And it's a little surprising to me because Sam Howell was great last year when he had all this NFL talent around him. He loses 90% of the guys on offense, running backs, receivers, offensive linemen, all gone to the NFL, or all just gone in general, most of them to the NFL, and really had to carry that whole offense pretty much on his own this year. And it allowed us to see a different aspect of his game, because coming into this year, Sam Howell was one of the favorites or one of the prospects being talked about as a potential top overall pick. And then he added another dimension to his game this year by rushing for over 1,000 yards, showing strength as a runner, showing that he had that ability that he really didn't tap into in the past. We knew he was mobile, but this year was at a different level. And I feel like he should be getting a little more love. Now, as of now on my board, he is 38th overall, but that's nothing. If a guy 30th, 40th on your big board, 50th on your big board, could very well sneak up into the tail end of the first round if one of these teams wants him and knows he's not going to be there. So that's not unheard of, and that won't make me blink or think anything too crazy. But why isn't Sam Howell getting more love?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when we talked about Sam Howell and how the offense had changed in North Carolina this past year because of them losing so much talent. He's not getting more love because I think there's some concerns about him reading defenses per se, like the offense he ran in North Carolina, both before they lost all that talent and after they had it. And they're basically using him almost like a fullback in terms of taking a shotgun snap and basically diving right ahead for a couple of yards every now and then. I think there's concerns about him being able to read defenses and be able to kind of get through the process of looking through routes and kind of moving forward, as well as his footwork. His footwork's a little bit all over the place. I know PFF has him as QB1. So I know at least one outlet out there that does a lot of analytics-based thought and rankings has him at least QB1. And I can understand that. I could see it. He is, like I said, one of the guys I have up there in terms of being a potential quarterback QB1 in this class. And I like Sam Howell. I do. I just think that there's a lot of the small stuff you need to clean up. And again, we have not really seen him have to process an NFL caliber defense for an extended period of time at North Carolina, where he's not going through the reads and progressions the way you would at the NFL level. Now, that's been a complaint in the past. And I think really the problem with him, like I said, footwork, the reads, and we've had QBs come into the NFL with that as an issue in the past, and some of them just take off right away like it's no big deal. And others, for some reason, take 2 or 3 years to get it worked out. So really, we're at that point where Sam Howell, where we don't know what he's going to be because he hasn't yet to show us that he can do this. That doesn't mean he can't do it. But if you take him as QB1 at 16, 12, something like that overall, you're making a bet in the game that he's going to be able to make this jump that we just don't know if he can do it or not.
You know, we're going to talk a lot more about these quarterbacks. And, here we go, Mike Goodpasser with a comment. And Mike Goodpasser says, Howell never goes past the second read and no pocket presence, bad feet, just like you said. That's definitely a thing. So, I don't know. Maybe I have the benefit of not being in the front office and also not being a coach. So, I don't have to worry about my reputation. I don't have to worry about getting fired from my position for liking a guy like Sam Howell. But I'll tell you what, for me, I'm a little bit more likely to take that risk on a quarterback. Everyone's more likely to take that risk on that quarterback. That's why the position rises so much beyond its importance. And I think Sam Howell's one of those guys. He's one of the guys that has all that physical talent that you look for. If you can get him a good quarterbacks coach, a good offense where it allows him to make those reads a little quicker, he doesn't have to think too much. He could do something special in the league. I like his mobility, his arm strength, etc. I think he can be done. And here we go, Mike, with another comment. You can be fired. No, I cannot, Mike, because to be fired wouldn't.
I'll say this about Sam Howell. The one thing that I think works in his favor is he is basically a true junior, as opposed to some of these guys who are 4th or 5th year players. So he's going to be younger than most of these guys coming out. So if you're trying to look at it as the development way, he's got basically another year. Kenny Pickett was at Pittsburgh 4 to 5 years, maybe in 6 years. I know Malik Willis was in college football for 5 years. So you're looking at it from that angle. He is on the younger side, so you're looking for a development thing he'll have in the year basically before he's really at the level that some of these other guys are at. I still wouldn't take him in the first round, but I wouldn't take any of these guys in the first round if I could. Avoid.
Agreed. Now, let's move on to running back because we haven't talked about running back much, really at all so far in this process. We've spent a lot of time talking quarterbacks, edge rushers, so on and so forth. But before I move on, I want to remind you guys that your top sportsbook comparison site is betting.net, and it offers extensive reviews on the best sportsbooks out there. So head on over to betting.net. And Mike with another wonderful contribution. He says Steve Risley can replace me. Steve Risley can barely focus on NCAA basketball and NASCAR. He can't touch me in the NFL draft. Oh shit! Oh Joe, what up, Joe? Joe Michael, my man. What is good, bud? Hey, and you know what? Just as I was going to show this man some love. And then, look, Mike, from the NFL picks, a cat could replace you. You know what? I might have my cat make those picks for me next year. It might be a lot better off than I will. And I mean, hey, I think there's like an octopus that picks Super Bowl winners or something like that. And every year,
there's all kind of animals that do stuff.
Yeah, every year it picks the winner. I don't get it. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but I think the octopus is like 10-0 in the last 10 years of picking winners.
What they do is they film the octopus putting one sign up, and then they film him putting the other sign up, and they use the one of the winning team.
That's the secret?
That's probably the secret.
All right, so let's jump into running backs. Because like I said, we haven't talked about this position damn near at all. And I think part of the reason for that, at least for me, is because this is not an exciting running back class. And I don't think there are any stars per se in this class. I don't have any first round picks graded out. In fact, I don't have a running back on my big board ranked until till the 60s with Breece Hall. And for me, I look at this running back class and I do see a lot of talent. I do see guys with different abilities like Isaiah Spiller, a good all-around back, but he doesn't stand out. Kenneth Walker, great explosiveness, speed, playmaker, doesn't do it for me in pass protection, doesn't do it for me as a guy who can break those arm tackles and stuff like that. Breece Hall, solid career last year and this year, should probably run 4.4, 4.5. Now, if he does that, he'll solidify his place. He is currently my top back. But despite there not being any stars, there's no Saquon Barkley type or Zeke Elliott or somebody like that or Christian McCaffrey. There's no one who's going to go in the top 10, top 15, top 20. There might not even be one who goes in the first round. Do you look at this class and see the same thing that I see, or do you see something? Am I missing something?
I think I'm more high in this class than you are, not in terms of the high-end talent. I'm not saying there's any first-round kind of guys in this class. There aren't. But I think there's a lot of depth there. There's going to be a lot of guys you're going to get between the late second round to even the early fifth round that are going to be potentially the top back in a backfield of 2 or 3 guys. There's going to be a lot of dudes in there who's going to contribute very quickly. I look at Jerome Ford from Cincinnati. Jerome Ford is very explosive from my watch. He was quicker the first, I'll say, 15 yards past the line of scrimmage. He was quicker than I expected when I got to watch him. Jerome Ford is going to be a very good running back in the NFL. I'm going to be higher on him than most people. I think Dameon Pierce is going to be interesting to see how fast he runs, because even if he doesn't run that fast, he's built like 5'10", 220 or something like that. He's linebacker size at this point. I mean, there's linebackers that are that size in the NFL now. So you're going to have Dameon Pierce who's going to be able to run guys over. I think he's going to run fairly well. The speed testing is going to be interesting for some of these guys. I really want to see what someone like Kyren Williams runs, because Kyren Williams is a guy who's very polarizing in this class. Excellent pass protection, excellent college running back, very good hands out of the backfield. Undersized, not truly that explosive, not a burn in terms of speed. So I think that could really affect his draft stock, because you could see him going anywhere between the bottom of the second round. Like I said, probably the bottom of the 4th, top of the 5th. It's a wide range for someone like him. And if I had to mention some other guys, Brian Robinson from Alabama and Abram Smith from Baylor, 2 power kind of backs, those dudes are just going to be solid NFL players. We've seen this before. Guys like them who have the power come in, and they'll grind out 500 yards, 600 yards a year. I think they're just going to be able to do that. Now, will they run that fast? I don't really know. And again, like, does the 40 time, how much does the 40 time really measure your skill as a player? It might not be an approximate kind of thing, but teams do take this into account. There's reasons why they send scouts, and they have scouts lined up along the hash marks for the 40-yard dash. They're always there to watch. So I think there's going to be that's going to make an impact, whether it should or not. For guys like Brian Robinson, Abram Smith, some of the more power backs, you can run very fast. You can definitely boost yourself quite a bit.
Now, I will agree with you to what you said about this class. While not being top heavy, it does have a lot of good potential contributors. And my biggest thing is that with all these backs, the talent is obvious on a lot of these guys, but there's certain avenues where, like, I was going down my checklist, and I see this a lot for a lot of these players, lacking vision in certain situations, terrible pass blocking, not a natural receiver, things like that. When you're looking at running backs, what traits do you value when setting up your big board over others?
Well, I'll say this about something like big board. I think pass pro has massive at this point for the NFL, considering what offenses look like nowadays. Pass protection is huge, and for some teams, you can't pass protect. You're just not going to be on the board that high. So someone like Kenneth Walker might be extremely explosive, might be fairly well rounded in terms of just his pure ability to run the ball, but not being a proven pass catcher, not being that level in pass protection. that's really going to knock you down quite a bit. And that's why someone like Kyrie Williams has a chance to go in the bottom of the second round, top of the third, because he is excellent in pass protection. He does have solid, reliable hands for passing routes. So he has the opportunity to make plays in those situations. Really, at this point in the NFL, I love the power physical backs. Guys like the Kenneth Walker who can run between the tackles, who can run outside too, and is explosive in the first 15 yards and has solid finishing speed, not breakaway speed in terms of like the juice to pull away and separate from guys, but he's going to have solid long-term speed. So I like what he brings in that regard. But if we're talking about truly what do NFL teams value at this point, they can find a power back whenever they want. They can get a power back in the 5th, 6th round and be just fine. What they're looking for is a guy who can pass protect well and can either do one of two things. They can either be an excellent receiving back, so like a Jaron Ely is going to be kind of like that scat back who's going to get you a lot of receiving yards this year. They want someone who can specialize in that, or they want someone who's going to be 5'10", 215, 220, and can run between the tackles with some juice.
Who's your top running back on your board right now going into the combine?
Let me pull it up. Now, this board is a month old, but top running back I had still Kenneth Walker because I've been blown away. I'll say this, like I said, not the most well-rounded back in terms of his pass protection and receiving ability.
Mm-hmm.
But his burst from the initial 15 yards from the line of scrimmage, his ability to hit a hole with power, still blows me away every time I watch it. More so than guys like Isaiah Spiller or Breece Hall. I think his explosiveness in the hole, his explosiveness into contact is excellent. And I love that about him. And I get kind of maybe wrapped up too much in that trait. But again, that's kind of why I view from him. That's why I like him so much. My other guys in the top 3 are Breece Hall and Isaiah Spiller. And I'm going to have to reshuffle his board a little bit because I had Kyrie Williams at 4. I don't know if I'm going to keep him there. I had Dameon Pierce at 5. This is back in January. I think he's going to stay right around that range. And I had Jerome Ford at 6. He's someone who I might move up. And talking about receiving ability, someone like James Cook, who I had running back 7, seeing what he did at Georgia down the stretch, his receiving ability, that's going to be a guy who's going to be highly valued and might even sneak into round 3.
My top 3 right now, I have pretty much the same guys, but I'm gonna be mixing this up probably as well after the combine. We'll have to see. This is one of the positions that I want to see where some of these guys work out because the 10-yard split's going to be important for some of these guys. The 40-yard dash is going to be important for some of these guys. You're going to want to see their explosiveness in the broad jump and the vertical jump. So I'm looking forward to seeing this because the combine, at least when it comes to the running back position, and I've always said this, there's guys that have good stats. There's guys who might physically look the part, but when they're doing these drills, you can see what a professional running back looks like. Like you can see these guys running these drills and you see the fluid athleticism. You see the feet. You see the way the hips are moving. You see things in these workouts that you don't necessarily see on tape. So I like the combine, particularly for running backs, because while quarterbacks, it means literally almost nothing short of, like you said, them just airballing everything and overthrowing guys and just looking sloppy and like they don't belong. And we've had those combines where quarterbacks shit the bed. We've had that in recent years. So that's not unheard of, and that's not something that wouldn't happen. But for the running back position, I want to see what these guys look like when they run these drills. That's a big thing for me when it comes to at least to this position. But I think a guy who's going to get a lot of love as we go along, or at least he should at the running back position, is Dameon Pierce, the running back from Florida. Now, I am a Gators fan, so I watch all these games for my personal enjoyment, even though I don't enjoy it these days because Florida's butt cheeks. But when I was watching Florida this year, I might very well put this man in my top 3 because even though he doesn't look shifty, he doesn't have that lateral movement that you might look for. He's not going to make anybody miss like that in the hole. There's really no other weakness to his game other than those things. And you're really nitpicking, and you don't need to be that. Not every running back is going to run away from everybody every time. Not every running back is going to, dance in the hole or whatever and find the perfect little crevice. Well, those are the best of the best.
Yeah,
but a guy like
Najee Harris went in the first round last year. Najee Harris is not shifty at all.
Not compared to some of the other top backs in the league, even recently drafted. I'm not even talking about guys, from a few years ago. I'm talking about last year, even the year before that, even this year. Najee, you're right, isn't the shiftiest guy, but that doesn't matter in the right system. So I think I think a guy like Dameon Pierce is an NFL back. He's thick. He's got good power. He's got good vision. He's a good pass blocker, more than willing to block. He's a solid receiver, even though he's not a natural receiver. You'll hear about that during the process of guys being a natural receiver out of the backfield. He's not a natural receiver, but he can catch the ball. He makes adjustments, and he's not completely useless. So, and particularly for this guy, he's one of those guys that has sneaky athleticism. So, like, the strength is there. He's got that explosiveness through the hole. But he's one of those guys where the testing is going to really, really show up big. Because if he runs a 4.6, that's really threatening compared to running, a 4.5. That could be a huge difference for a guy like him from going in, say, the end of the second round or dropping to like the fourth round or something like that. And it may not even have an effect on his career long term, but that's the way these things go. Are there any other running backs that you haven't mentioned that you want to touch on before we move on?
Two more guys that just want to mention: Rashad White from Arizona State and Tyler Algier from BYU, and maybe Keontae Ingram from USC. I think those three guys, to me, our names are going to be floated around there. Some guys are going to be very high on Algier, I think. Some guys are really going to like him. They're going to have him as a top 5 running back potentially. But other than those three, everyone else is kind of pick your flavor a little bit in terms of the running back play.
That's what this whole class is, man. That's what makes this class so exciting compared to some of the recent seasons. Is there's so many guys. Once you get even at the top of the draft, there's so many guys that you can look and say, oh well, who do you like? What are you looking for? Kind of a thing. But let's move on from the running back position. We put some good time into that. And I do want to show some more love to betting.net, because Grueling Truth is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding the online casino or sportsbook that's right for you. So head on over to betting.net. So let's move on to the wide receiver and tight end positions. Pass catchers, money makers, touchdown scorers. All right. Take the top off the defense. Open it up for these running backs we were talking about. There's pretty much like 4 to 5 names that we can expect to hear in the first round. Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Jamison Williams, Chris Olave, and Treylon Burks. Pretty fair to say those guys are first round picks?
Yeah, I think so. You could always have the chance where one of them falls into the second round, but for the most part, those are the 5 guys that if you're going to have a first round pick, I'm willing to bet it's from that group.
Which one of those 5 guys do you see most likely dropping to the second round? Not saying that he will, but if he does, which one of those 5 guys is dropping?
People are not going to like this response. I'm going to say Garrett Wilson, because Garrett Wilson, to me, I want to watch him.
Really?
Yeah, I want to watch Garrett Wilson. He screams wide receiver too. Like, he's not going to be your top guy. I don't think Olave is either, to be fair. I don't think there's not many guys in spots I think has the potential to be your wide receiver 1, purely. I think Jameson Williams could potentially be that guy. I think Drake London could be that guy. Okay. Treylon Burks is a huge question mark for me, because he looks like his straight burst and breakaway speed is phenomenal. But I mean, like, even DK Metcalf this year, DK Metcalf was a monster in 2020. DK Metcalf comes back in 2021 and has 900 receiving yards and looks worse than Tyler Lockett. So it's just, for someone like Treylon Burks, I want to see him be a full receiver, not just a burner per se, not just someone who can get the ball and just run laterally. But my concern with Garrett Wilson, he's small. He's going to be like 6 foot, maybe. I think he's measured at 6'1", maybe in college. I think he's going to be less than that. He's going to weigh like 185 pounds. He's not a big dude. And granted, you don't have to be a really good receiver in the NFL. Mm-hmm. But when I watch him in particular, I don't see a wide receiver 1 to begin with. And you throw in the size concerns as well. It's just not my type of receiver. I really don't want to pick that guy in the first round.
Wow.
I know people love him. There are a lot of people who have his wide receiver 1. So I'm kind of out here on an island for this one, but it's just not my guy.
That's all right, yo. That's all right. Have conviction in your rankings and in your analysis. Stick with it. Even though I hate it, I love it at the same time. You got to have those opinions. You stick to them. That's one thing that I learned from Mike Goodpaster. You have your opinions and you stick to them. Yeah, educate yourself. Make sure your opinion sounds good and you don't sound like a goof, and you stick to it. And that's one thing Mike does. Mike has opinions, and he is not shy about it, and he will not change his mind unless he wants to change it because he's been convinced. So you got to stick to it. You got to hold that down. I'm just gonna say I hate it because size or not, everything I've seen from this kid. I mean, he's fluid. He's got the explosiveness you look for. He's a great deep threat. The routes are on point. I mean, he's good after the catch. Size be damned. In the NFL, even if he's a slot guy, teams will figure out a way to get him the ball. I mean, yeah, it's not ideal to be 5'11 ish, 6 foot ish, 190 pounds ish, but that's nowhere near small compared to some of the other guys. Not even in the league. Some of the guys at his own position. Even his own teammate, Chris Olave. He was measured. He was listed in college at 6'1", 188. Is he going to be 5'11", 175? I mean, is it going to get crazy? Jahan Dotson, 5'11".
Yeah, Dotson's
180. Khalil Shakir, 6 foot, 191. These
and
guys.
To be fair, I would like Garrett Wilson more. If we were billing Garrett Wilson as a slot receiver and just as a slot receiver alone, I would like him more than that. But I think there are people billing him as an outside wide receiver, which is something that I think he'll be fine out there. But again, I think there's a inherent ceiling built into that projection where he's not going to go beyond being your second receiver in an offense. And I don't want to use.
And you don't think that ceiling is high enough to warrant that first round pick?
Not unless you're a team where it's like if you were. I'm making up a scenario, but if you were the Green Bay Packers and you have Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers coming back, and your second receiver is Allen Lazard or someone like that, you could justify taking a wide receiver 2 in the first round. You could do it, but I'm just saying, like there are teams like you were Tampa Bay last year. Tampa Bay's looking at the situation where you have Chris Godwin and Mike Evans on the roster, and potential free agents coming up. You're not taking Garrett Wilson to be your next guy. I don't think so. So that's my view on him. I think there's definitely routes to take a wide receiver 2 in the first round for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm not the one who wants to do that. And I don't think teams, unless you have a specific need at that position, are going to be ones to do it. Like Buffalo late in the first round, Buffalo would love to have him, I'm sure. Green Bay would probably love to have him as well. But not every team is going to be in on that.
Now, for me, if I had to pick one of those guys, I would probably go with Chris Olave. Olave.
Olave's right.
Okay, good. We're gonna work through these kinks.
Yeah, work through the names, right?
We're gonna work through these. I'm gonna have to Wikipedia these guys' names and shit. But no, Olave is the guy for me. Out of those 5 names, he's the guy I like the least. And everything you said about Wilson, I'm gonna say about Olave. That I don't see him as a profile wide receiver 1. I don't like his deep ball. He too often will try to secure the ball in his pads and in his chest instead of high pointing it like you're supposed to. He's not the most physical guy. Okay. And then you always question these measurements. If we're going to talk about Wilson being slight, Olave is not that much bigger. So, for me, these are things that'll keep him in that questionable range. For me on my big board, I actually have him as my 5th receiver. And I have him at number 21 right now on my big board. However, I've been playing with my big board and seeing where I like some of these guys, and I don't know how I feel about it. The more I look at it and the more I look at my notes and stuff, the more I feel like moving Olave down. But I don't really know if I want to move any of these other guys up. But outside of those big 5, so we'll go back to them in a little bit. But outside those big 5, are there any second, third round types at receiver that you're looking forward to watching at the combine?
Yeah, I'm staring at a whole bunch of them right now. I think Jalen Tolbert from South Alabama, we got to see a little bit at the Senior Bowl. I think he's got some real dynamic ability to his game. Good enough speed-wise to get vertical, and he's got a really good contested catch ability. Not as big nearly as Treylon Burks or Drake London. Not that kind of size, but a good enough build where he's able to make that kind of impact. And like I said, get deep as well. He's a second round kind of guy for me. I'm not pushing him into the first round or anything like that, but I think he's going to be up there for sure. someone like George Pickens is incredibly hard to figure out because George Pickens was really good as a rookie. As a freshman, the torn ACL, barely plays this past year. He makes like one big catch every game, and that's about it. So I don't really know how you judge him. It's hard. He's been almost a year off this ACL injury. I think just having him out there for the combine, if he does decide to fully participate and he does feel medically able to do all that, and that would just be a positive for him just to be able to get out there and get in front of scouts and general managers and stuff like that, just to be present and kind of have people look at him. I think would be fantastic for him. Skye Moore from Western Michigan, the slot receiver, is kind of moving up boards quite a bit. He's on the smaller size. He's like, I think 5'10", I want to say 5'9", but he's about 205, 210 pounds. He's going to be built really well. And he's got very fluid route running ability. He gets clean releases all the time consistently. Good speed. I say passable twitch. He's not Tyreek Hill levels of twitchy at all, but he's going to be twitchy enough to make guys miss in space. And if you're asking would I rather have Garrett Wilson, honestly, would I rather have Garrett Wilson at pick 25 or have Skye Moore at pick 50? I might take Skye Moore at pick 50 just for the heck of it being a little bit more cost effective, I'll say. Other guys, just a few more. David Bell from Purdue, your typical big body receiver, I think will be higher on some boards than others because of his ability to make some big plays and be a monster in the outside of the contested catch situations. Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky, he's kind of your do-it-all gadget receiver who's never going to be an 1,000-yard receiver, but might get over 1,000 scrimmage yards because he's going to get some touches in the backfield. He's going to get some stuff schemed up for him. Mm-hmm. And one more guy, Kristen Watson from, I think it's South Dakota State, I want to say. North Dakota State. Christian Watson is going to be, he's going to be good. I mean, watching him at the Senior Bowl, he stood out quite well at the Senior Bowl, maybe even more so than Jalen Tolbert, honestly. And I've seen some guys in the draft circle tweeting out, maybe he's a top 50 pick. Maybe he gets that high. There's definitely some teams that view him as a second-round caliber player, and he's going to be going on day 2. It's just a question of how high will he reach.
For me, I'm really looking at David Bell. He for me on my board, he's 56 overall, so I got him firmly in the second round conversation. And I have 15 wide receivers with top 100 in my top 100, okay? And most of them fall between 56 and 100. So for me, this scouting combine is going to be sorting that group out. Because right now I have David Bell at the top of that group. But I've got names, I mean, you mentioned a couple of them in Tolbert, Pickens, and Watson. But I've got Khalil Shakir up there. I've got Justin Ross from Clemson in there. Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky. Kyle Phillips from UCLA. So I kind of know what to expect from some of these guys. Like, I fully expect Phillips to have a blazing 40. We expect Robinson to test really well in the agility drills and stuff like that. But I want to see where some of these guys time, and David Bell is the one name that I circled because for me, even though he's not a first-round wide receiver, it's not because he can't play. Good size, outside receiver. He can get off the line. He's got long arms. He's a good enough athlete, even though if he doesn't have that downfield, Deshaun Jackson deep speed or anything like that. He doesn't need it. He gets open. He catches in traffic. He's got good hands. He runs good routes. And he doesn't have any injuries that we need to worry about or any off the field things that he's had to tussle with. So, I mean, for any of these guys, having one or two issues is what's holding them back from being those first-round prospects. But for him, his lack of versatility of playing in the slot, his lack of, like I said, the speed, limited route tree in Purdue knocks him down. But I think he's one of the guys who could surprise. I don't think he's a guy who could rise into the first round. I have heard some rumors that he might be a potential late first-round pick. But I think after those top 5 guys, top 6 guys, I think he's very well a name to pay attention to at the top of the second round if these other guys are all gone by then.
Yeah, again, it's like we said, it's a situation where it's pick your flavor, right? I mean, if you're looking for that kind of player, he fits the bill exactly what you're looking for. But again, there's other players out there who kind of have different dynamic abilities to their games. It's a question of, do you want the slot receiver? Because there's a bunch of them. Kyle Phillips, Skye Moore, Wan'Dale Robinson will probably be in that role. Or do you want the bigger dude? I mean, you can look at a Drake London, a bigger downfield possession receiver to some extent. David Bell. There's tons of guys. You have tons of options. And you mentioned your receivers being a little bit clustered towards the back. I've got 4 receivers between pick 60 and 70 on this big board, which is over a month old. But I've got 4 receivers between 60 and 70 on it. And they're all kind of clustered there because they are in that range to be second-round picks. And I will be moving some of them up, by the way, because I did not have Christian Watson nearly as high as he's going to be on my new big board once we get to that point.
Now, well, for reference sake, I have Kristen Watson currently at number 67 on my big board. And I actually moved him up fairly recently because he was outside of my top 100 a couple of weeks ago. But I want to ask you about two guys before we go to tight ends and then move on real quick. The first one is John Mechie. The second one is Justin Ross. Now, these 2 guys are not being talked about for different reasons. One because of injury, the other because he just wasn't quite right this past year. Without Trevor Lawrence, looked different. You're a Clemson guy, okay?
Yes.
You know these players. You've watched these players. Like I've watched my Florida Gators. You watch them closely because they're your boys. This is your squad. This is your school. So you watch these guys a little more than I would say other schools and other players. Why is Justin Ross not getting any love to the point where no one's talking about him? And this is another guy who went from a potential first-round pick to, I mean, is he even going to go in the third round? Is he just going to fall off the face of the earth? What happened?
Yeah, so with Justin Ross, and I think PFF still has him graded out as a day 2 pick, but they are fairly alone in that sense. And here's the thing. I love Justin Ross. Watching Justin Ross his freshman year and even his sophomore year, which wasn't as good, I thought he was a better receiver than T. Higgins, really, at that point in time.
Okay.
The issue is he has this congenital fusion in his neck. It's listed as a career-threatening injury or career-threatening thing he has to have surgery for. He has the surgery done. He misses his entire season. He comes back. He gets cleared to play for contact in August of 2021 and has been playing in college football games in September. So it's a situation where he doesn't have the full time to recover. And you look at someone like George Pickens coming back from a torn ACL and barely playing. Justin Ross comes back. He plays, but he did not look nearly as fast as usual. He looked a little bit, his hands were not as good. I think they only credited him with 4 drops this year. I swear he had way more than that. But to some extent, Clemson also used him in improper situations. I love Justin Ross when he was able to play on the outside and get vertical on guys because he has enough speed to do that. When him and T. Higgins were your outside receivers going downfield, it was bombs away. And it worked out because Justin Ross is really good in those contested catch situations. Mm-hmm. Clemson tried using him in the slot this past year, and that really minimalized what he could do because you're looking for a receiver to run underneath routes or run shorter crossing routes. It's not going to be Justin Ross. He's just not going to be that kind of guy. He has to be allowed to work downfield a little bit. So to me, Clemson misused him, and that's partially because they had so many receivers who were getting hurt or were injured. So that's more on the program than Justin Ross. And also, he's recovering from a major surgery that when you're having this done in your neck, you can't work out. You can't do a lot of things. You have no load bearing for a long time. So there's a lot of physical factors playing into this. I think having a full year back cleared for contact is going to do wonders for him. I think it's going to be entirely different this coming year than what he looked like last year. Now, will he look like what he did in 2018, 2019? You're taking a real chance if you're going to say yes. So I'm not going to say that. I think he's going to be a good receiver. I would not list him as a first-round caliber player. And if I had to make a decision here, and I'm looking at Christian Watson, Jalen Tolbert in the second round versus Justin Ross in the third, I would rather have the Tolbert or Watson in the second. And frankly, I might not take someone like Ross until the fourth round because it is a concern. Because I don't know if he's going to get back or not. Mm-hmm. I had this conversation with someone the other day about Saquon Barkley. I'm not sure I would trade a day 2 pick for Saquon Barkley.
Wow.
Because I don't know if Barkley's ever going to be that guy again. And I'm at the same point with Ross right now where I just don't know if he's going to get back. This is the kind of freak injury where you've been away for so long. You had to go through so much recovery. Who knows if you're going to be that same kind of guy. So that's what the deal with Ross. And it's unfortunate because, like I said, when he is fully healthy, he's going to be worth a second-round selection, but you cannot guarantee he will be. Medicals at the combine are going to be absolutely crucial for him. And frankly, how he runs is going to be important as well.
And it sucks, man, because I really liked Ross too, man. he was, I mean, everything you look for. Good size, good body control, can outmuscle corners physically for the ball at its highest point. He had some moves after the catch, good hands, good catch radius, good route runner. I mean, he was what you look for at the position, so it sucks. And I know he had the injury, and I know that was an issue with him coming back. And like you said, he never had top speed, and now the speed is even more questionable. But I just hope he comes back because I like him a lot. And if he's healthy, I think he can make some noise.
No, I think he can too.
And since we're talking about health concerns with wide receivers, I did ask about Mechie, and he's another one who, coming into the year, second half or early half of the first half of the season, a potential first-round pick, blazing speed, your typical Alabama stud receiver that we've come to expect over the last few years. Then Jameson Williams shows up and just absolutely balls out. And then John Mechie tears his ACL. And then that's it. Is that it? Is that just it? Is just the ACL injury is what took him off?
No, I think John Mechie, honestly, would not be shocked if John Mechie went in the second round. Really wouldn't be, depending on how the medicals come back and where he is in his progression to return. Because teams are going to want these guys available as quickly as possible. They don't want to be waiting until week 8 of the season to get a receiver they took in the top 50 picks, top 60 picks to get back. But I think Mechie, depending on what you're looking for, again, I'm not sure he has the speed per se that you want. I'm not sure his game really has to rely on that speed because Mechie has clean releases. He runs routes pretty cleanly. He gets good separation. It's not necessarily with speed, but with his ability to redirect quickly. So I think something like that, his shiftiness to some extent, and even the twitch, are what really make him a good player. And I don't think he's going to be the guy you're going to be targeting downfield too often in the NFL. But he gives you someone who's going to be open consistently on shorter routes, over the middle, that kind of stuff. So I look at John Mechie, and again, it depends on what you need as a team. If you have that guy already, don't bother. But John Mechie is going to be fill a position of need for certain teams. And frankly, even like a team like Pittsburgh this year, the Steelers, Deontay Johnson does a pretty good job of getting open consistently. But if you're looking to add someone to the receiver room, someone like a John Mechie, I would like that because you have to have a guy when you're working with a younger quarterback specifically, which Pittsburgh might be, depending on what mistakes they make in the first round. You're going to need a guy who gets open consistently. That's what John Mechie does. The clean release, the separation, and the quick twitch ability to redirect. Those 3 things are important for the NFL for receivers, and John Mechie is all 3 of them.
I actually have Mechie in my latest mock draft, which I'm having troubles posting, but regardless, I have him going 50th overall to the Dolphins right now.
Reunited. Yeah, I'm on board with that. Like, I understand that. I get it. It makes sense. Despite the injury, I think he's still going to be a borderline top 50, probably top 60 pick.
And in a situation like that, when they already got Jalen Waddle, they don't need Mechie to do anything special or crazy or lead them or anything like that. They got a stud already. So something like that could work out, like you said. Now, let's move on to tight ends because this is a position that doesn't get any love, really. No one talks about tight ends, regardless of the fact that it's a very important position for a lot of these teams. Even in this new era, we're seeing the tight end position, even though there's not a lot of good tight ends in the league right now that you look at and you say, I want that guy. The top 8 or so, 9 tight ends in the league, they make moves, man. They make waves. They're very important parts of their team. Now, do you see anyone in this class, not right away to the Kittle, Kelsey levels, because you can't project that like this right now. There's no one like that. But are there any of these guys that you could see developing and getting to a point where they become a true difference maker for their team at the tight end position?
Not at that level, per se. But I will say Trey Mcbride, I could see Trey Mcbride becoming a Zach Ertz type player. Someone who doesn't have the dynamic ability, but is consistently in that 700 to 800 yard receiving range because he understands spacing defensively and how to find holes and just sit down, let the ball come to him, and maybe rumble a little bit afterwards. And he's a decent blocker, I think. He's a little bit squatty for his size, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually probably helpful when it comes to leveraging against in the running game. So he actually has some natural advantages in that sense. And he's pretty good at contested catch situations as well. So I think Trey Mcbride, to me, sticks out as a potential tier 2 kind of tight end in the NFL. Not someone I would use a first-round pick on, but if he develops well, I do think he can turn into an impact player where you're getting consistent. That 600 yards is probably the floor, and that 800 to 900 yards is probably the ceiling. Again, probably not worth a first-round pick when you can get a receiver in the second round who will get more than that, but I think still a very good, impactful player for a team in the NFL. And outside of him, it's kind of up and down. Someone like Jeremy Ruckert's your do-it-all kind of tight end who didn't get a lot of receptions and targets at Ohio State. I think he could turn to someone impactful for your team. And I know a guy who's, based on measurables, is getting a lot of love recently is Jelani Woods from Virginia. I know he came out, I think he was at the Shrine Bowl and had some really good measurements, 34-inch arms, 259 pounds, and 6'6" and a good mover. He's going to get a lot of love potentially, and he's going to be someone who could rise up boards when more people get to see him at the combine.
How many tight ends do you have ranked in your top 100 right now?
Give me 1 second. So I had, looks like 4 in the top 100. It was Isaiah Likely, Jeremy Ruckert, Weidermeyer from Texas A&M, and then McBride.
Who's the highest ranked on your board right now?
McBride.
McBride. Where do he slot?
50. So not
50?
not too high, but still I think McBride's a quality second round pick, and it's about where I'm at with him.
That's a sweet spot. I got him at 44.
Yeah, right around that range, right?
Sounds about right. Again, in that 40-50 range, you can see guys vaulting up into the end of the first round. Don't be surprised. And there's been a lot of rumblings over the last few weeks that a lot of these teams are looking at the tight end position and looking for a difference maker, and that Trey McBride is it, because the man doesn't really have, despite his size of 250 pounds or something like that, I think he's listed at. He doesn't really have many weaknesses otherwise. I mean, it's one thing to knock a guy for size, for height, whatever, but at least for the tight end position, he's versatile. He's good after the catch. He's a good blocker. He's got enough speed that he can beat guys on the outside. You can move him around. And, I mean, I think it's, at least for me, it's clear that he is, at least for me, head and shoulders above all these other guys at the position in this class.
No, I agree. I agree with you there.
Yeah, I think that's clear. I like Weidermeyer. I have him at 73, and I like Isaiah Likely as a receiving option, like a Jordan Reed type of receiver. Super athletic, good receiver, not a good blocker. Coming out of Coastal Carolina, he's gotten some love too this offseason. Is there anyone at this position that you're trying to pay attention to? Someone that you want to see how they test to see if you move them up or anything like that?
Not anyone I am too high on that I really think could jump out and kind of become from an unknown to a really known factor and make himself potentially top 100 selections. I don't think there's anyone like that in this class. I'm going to watch Jelani Woods, who I already mentioned. I'm going to watch Cole Turner from Nevada, who I think could be kind of like your prototypical receiving or big receiver, essentially. Maybe like a big slot kind of guy. I'm going to watch those two just because I'm curious to see how high they can go. I haven't really established a ceiling from either one of them yet. But other than that, I'm not too intrigued by this class. I think there's definitely some good mid-round guys and some guys who will be impactful players in the NFL, but I don't think there's anyone who's going to be a shoo-in starter per se outside of Trey McBride.
Honestly,
maybe Jeremy Ruckert.
Honestly, dude, I look at this tight end class, and even though I only have 3 in my top 100, I can easily see anywhere from 5 to 7 guys starting for the respective teams at the position at the end of the year. And I think it'll be more because there's a lack of actual frontline tight end talent than it is these guys being amazing athletes or whatever the case may be. But I just think there's a lot of balance and overall good talent here, because we're going beyond the big 3 that I was talking about with McBride, Weidermeyer, and Likely. I mean, you mentioned Ruckert. He's right there. Cade Oten from Washington, Greg Dulcich from UCLA, who has had a really good offseason thus far. He showed out in the Senior Bowl. So keep an eye out for some of those. Charlie Kolar from Iowa State, Jake Ferguson from Wisconsin, Cole Turner from Nevada. You said Jelani Woods from Virginia is getting a lot of love, 6'7", 275, give or take. So keep an eye out for these guys. See what happens at the end of the year. But before we move on to the offensive line, I want to remind you guys that betting.net finds the best promotions, offers, and bonus codes, so you don't have to. Head on over now to betting.net to take advantage of free bets and matching deposits, betting.net. So let's move on to the offensive line. We've actually given a lot of love to the offensive line, so I don't want to spend too much time here. And we'll definitely be talking about this moving forward because there's a lot going on. But Evan Neal is not going to be participating in any of the drills. Is he still your top tackle in the class?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, in terms of combining the pass protection ability and the run blocking ability, I think he is the best of the top three guys. We all know at this point are kind of taking over the top of the boards. I think he's got the best combination overall. Do I love him as a tackle one? No, I think he probably would have been tackle 3 in last year's class behind Penn Sewell and Rashawn Slater. But it is what it is. You have to work with what you've got. And Evan Neal to me is the best overall tackle. Ekwonu, I think, is the best run blocker. And frankly, I think he's got maybe the most upside of the group because of his ability to move, depending on what offense you put him in. If he works out in like Kyle Shanahan kind of offense, that would be incredibly fun to watch. And then tackle 3, Charles Cross, probably the most physically mediocre of the 3, and that's not necessarily criticism because he's still acting like freakish. You know how it is. You're comparing 2 really great athletes to someone who's also a really good athlete. But Cross, known for the pass protection and what he's able to do at Mississippi State.
Now, I also have Neal as my top tackle, but Ikem Ekwonu is gaining traction, and he's gaining a lot of traction. And it's a little weird to me only because I remembered maybe a month ago whispers being that he should maybe play guard, that he might not play tackle, that he might just be a guard because he got short arms or whatever the case may be, which I thought was absolutely foolish when I heard that at the time. I still think it's foolish. Are you buying or selling the rumors that he is not only pushing Neal as the top offensive tackle, but pushing for the top overall pick?
I buy he's pushing Neal. I don't know if I buy that he's pushing for the top overall pick. I mean, that would be no offense to Ekwonu, but that would be one of the worst in terms of from a prospect grading perspective, one of the worst first round picks we've had or first overall picks we've had recently. And it's not meant to be a knock against him because he is a first round caliber offensive tackle. But in terms of the grand historical function of first overall picks, that's not on the same level as some of the guys you can potentially get. Like you get an Aiden Hutchinson. That guy, again, not Myles Garrett, not one of the Bosa's, but he's up there. That's understandable. Evan Neal, you could justify based on the fact that he's 6'7", 6'8", 330 pounds, and is going to move pretty well. He's probably going to test pretty well at his pro day. So I think you can justify those selections. For someone like Ekwonu, it'd be much harder. I do buy the fact that he's pushing Neal, though, because I could see a scenario where you get Hutchinson goes first overall, Thibodeau goes second or something like that. Kyle Hamilton, depending on what team's up there and what their logic is, because I think Houston's up there, and you never know what they're going to do. Kyle Hamilton might go up there because he is a really talented player and probably the only true generational prospect in this class at any position. You could see a tackle fall to 4. I don't think it will happen, but you could see him fall as far as 4, in which case I would understand if Ekwonu could somehow jump that high. I don't think number 1's in play for him, though.
Yeah, I'm not buying it either. Neal's still my top tackle, and even though they are literally neck and neck, Neal is still my top guy. I don't see a reason to bump him down. He hasn't done anything wrong. His tape is still elite. And in a class where there's no top prospect, why not? For Ekwonu, it's for me, it's a matter of we know the physical is there. Okay, he's got physically everything you look for, of course. He's got a naturally wide base. He's a bully in the run game. He's got good balance, but he needs help as a pass blocker. That much we know. And it's been well documented that he needs to work on his technique. He needs to work on his footwork. And it's questionable now, is he going to be scheme specific? Like, do you want to put him in strictly, say, a zone blocking scheme because he's so athletic? and you can try to mask some of those pass blocking deficiencies that he might have. I'm not too concerned personally. I think once he gets to the NFL, ideally you think this, but he'll get the coaching that he needs. They'll help his technique, they'll help his footwork, they'll help him figure out how to counter rushers that go inside or whatever the case may be. So I'm not too concerned about any of his deficiencies. He is still a top 5 prospect for me at this point, but he's not better than Neal. Now, outside of the top guys, outside of Linderbaum, because we know what goes on there. We've talked about Zion Johnson. Okay, we've talked about all these top end guys, Trevor Penning, Kenyon Green, etc. Let's go down the board a little bit. All right, what guys are you looking at this week to see how they perform in the drills, moving up or down?
The Georgia guys, Damari Salyer and Justin Schaefer, who I think are both going to be billed as guard prospects. I think that Salyer is going to have the ability to play tackle in a pinch if you need him to. He might be one of those guys who starts his career as a guard and maybe out of necessity or maybe just out of the willingness to try. He eventually ends up playing some tackle, and we'll see from there if he's able to stick that spot. But I do think those two guys are players who are probably going to go. Someone like Salyer's probably going to be a round 3 guy, maybe early round 4. I think Schaefer's definitely going to be a day 3 guy, probably round 4 or 5. But when I look at them and I look what they did in Georgia, and again, this is a scheme kind of dependent situation, but if you have a team that likes to run the ball a lot, a la Baltimore Ravens or something like that, this is a plug-and-play starter, both these guys potentially. So I think there's people I want to watch because the testing, the mobility, the fluidity, the hips, and some of their movements, I want to see how that plays out because these are bigger guys, like I said, built primarily for power running games. So we'll see how that works out. Because if they look fluid and they look like they can maybe handle not just the scheme-specific element of the game and maybe be able to transition to other schemes, those are two guys who I think are plug-and-play starters. And again, you have to break out of that scheme. If you can play in multiple schemes with either of them, that'd be fantastic. I think you'd see those guys rise to be both day 2 selections if they're able to do that. I don't expect that will happen, but I do like both those guys quite a bit.
For me, I like them both as well, and I agree with your sentiment that these guys could be a solid 3rd round, 4th round picks and be plug and play starters. I only have one of them in my top 100. It's Salyer. I have him at number 72 overall on my board, just a little bit ahead of Dylan Parham. And I know how much you like Parham.
Yeah, I do. I'm very impressed. Like I said, I don't have Parham that high on my board because I have the board I have is from pre-Senior Bowl when I had Salyer at 79.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like Parham quite a bit for the fact that he's able to put on so much weight and still move very well. I think this guy is not going to fit every scheme, certainly, because he's not going to ever be a super power player per se. But I do love what he's able to do against some of the more powerful guys at the Senior Bowl in the one-on-ones. So I am a big fan of what he's done to transform his game and transform his body. And that's someone who is going to probably be, I'll say, a round 3 guy at this point. I feel fairly comfortable with him in that area.
I'm going to be looking at Max Mitchell for all intents and purposes. We know the offensive tackle position is so important. As far as Parham goes, I have him at 87 on my big board right now. But I'm looking at Max Mitchell. That's a name that has been getting some love lately as a potential early 2nd, maybe even a late 1st round pick. I'm not buying that at the moment. I do have him at 59 overall on my big board. But Max Mitchell, tackle from Louisiana, 6'6", give or take 300 pounds. Athletic, super athletic. One of the best run blockers in the class. He's shown really good as a pass blocker too at time. My concerns with him is his strength. He can get pushed. He's not a mauler like Ekwonu.
He got pushed at the Senior Bowl. He got pushed quite a bit at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, and I was going to say in the Senior Bowl, like I said, he can get handled at the point of attack, which is a little threatening because he does have a little bit of a lean frame and he can stand to add some strength. But I love the versatility. He can play both tackles. Maybe if you're even feeling squirrely and you need him to, you could kick him into guard. I don't like that. I think he's purely a tackle, but it's the NFL. These guys got to be versatile. They got to be able to play multiple positions. And if he's going to be a first-round pick, a team might be looking at him and saying, well, we might want him to start at tackle, but he has the potential to fill other slots if we need him. That'll add to his value. But I want to see Max Mitchell, because there's a lot of teams at the back end of the first round and the early part of the second round that need to build that offensive line. I'm looking at you, Cincinnati. I'm looking at you, Jacksonville. I'm looking at there's teams that need that help. I think Max Mitchell is one of those guys that could rise, and he could be a really good piece. Similar to Tariq Wallen, he could be a really good piece in a zone blocking scheme. I could see that. And for
this
me,
tackle class is very interesting. So there are a lot of guys who could be the mid-round selections and be very impactful players. Now you have him going a little bit higher than that, but I think there are a lot of guys who you're looking at. God, this is a viable player who could be a starter eventually. Maybe not right away, but guys who could definitely start within the first 2 or 3 years of their deal as tackles in the NFL, and that's an enticing offer, because you get a starter who you might have to develop for a year or two, but you get a starter and you're paying him for 2 or 3 years on a rookie contract for a third or fourth round pick. I mean, that's how much money you're saving per year doing that versus having to pay a guy $10 million a year. It's a huge way to save money for these teams.
Now, let's go on from the offensive line. I do want to throw out a couple other names that I'll be watching. Daniel Fa'alele, tackle from Minnesota, Grizzly Bear. Tyler Smith, offensive tackle from Tulsa. Some whispers that he could be a guard. I'm not buying that either. And Abraham Lucas, Washington State offensive tackle. Those are guys that you'll probably see at the end of the second round, maybe early third. Tyler Smith could very well be a second-round pick. I've been seeing a lot of love for him online lately. Same thing with Fa'alele, depending on how his measurements go. But let's move on from the offensive line before we go on. Oh, wait, hold on. Before we go on, I do want to put a post up here from Nasir Nazi. He says, I think Mitchell needs to start off at right tackle and move to left tackle by his third year. That could definitely happen. I mean, with the needs at the position across the league, somebody could look at him and say, all right, well, maybe not ready for left tackle, like Nazir is saying here, but why not take him, put him at a right tackle? We've seen, I mean, even last year, Penny Sewell starting at right tackle, moving over to left tackle because of an injury, playing well, moving back to right tackle just to finish the year with an ability to kick it at guard if he needed to. Now, that's an elite prospect, okay? He's so much better than Mitchell. That goes without saying. Top 10 pick, so on and so forth. But I'm just saying that versatility is what teams are looking for. So before we move on, I want to let you guys know that betting.net is not just sports betting, but it also compares the best online casinos. So sit back, relax, and play the top online slots, poker, and table games over at betting.net. Let's move on to the defensive line and the edge rushers. This is yet another position that we've talked a lot about, especially in recent weeks. Last week in particular, we talked exclusively pretty much about the edge rushers and whatnot. I have 15 edge rushers in my top 99. I think if I remember correctly, you had mentioned you had 17 edge rushers in your top.
Yeah, that's right. I got 17.
17. I have 15. So we're not too far off. Is that showing just how talented these players are overall, or is it really just a matter of this draft not being quite right, so these guys get pushed up?
No, I think it's really actually a very talented group. I think even in other years, we don't have, like I said, Aiden Hutchinson probably is not on the same level as Myles Garrett or the Bosa's, but he's still a very good player. And I think there is a lot of guys who are first-round caliber players who certainly benefit from this year happening to be a fairly weak class in a lot of their positions. But I do think the talent's real for these guys. I think you look at someone like an Arnold Ebiketie or Drake Jackson or Cameron Thomas, Kingsley Enagbare, these kind of second-round edge rushers, Majay Sanders, they're all very good players. I think they would be, for the most part, second-round players in most years. They're very good players and potential day one stars in most of these guys. And you can even go later than that and find guys like Boye Mafe at this point probably might be a second-round pick, but someone like a Sam Williams even in the later rounds who could be a very impactful player. Tariq Smith from Ohio State. I think this is a truly, truly elite edge class, and that's why I think it's the strength of this draft. I think it's the best position group from this class.
Now, I'm going to agree 100%. And I mean, dude, 15 to 17 prospects, guys ranked in the top 100. I mean, that should speak for itself. And we might even see 5, 6 guys, edge rushers taken in the first round. But with the defensive line, with Trayvon Walker, everything that I've been reading lately and everything I've been hearing lately is talking about Trayvon Walker being world-class athlete to the point where he's just going to blow up the combine and end up a top 15 pick. Are you buying that?
I'm buying the fact he's a world-class athlete and he's going to blow the combine up. I'm not sure if I'm buying the top 15 pick part. Because when I watch his game, he is super athletic. His ability to redirect is incredible. He moves way faster for a guy his size than I would expect. He's got pretty good power. My concerns are like the polish to his game. He gets stuck on tackles a little bit too easily and has trouble getting off them. There's really no second move or plan in his head as a pass rusher. A lot of his tackles for loss and sacks came from redirecting, like physically disengaging with the guy and then completely redirecting and running somewhere else on the football field entirely. No ability to like go through a guy, has to get off and run all the way around to get to him. Now he's quick enough to do that in college, but in the NFL, when a quarterback's dropping back to pass and the ball is out in 3 seconds, it's not likely going to work. So Trayvon Walker, to me, elite athlete, and if you have a good defensive line coach or someone who's really good at developing those kind of players, absolutely worth the first-round pick. If you're not known for developing defensive ends or defensive linemen, don't bother because you're just going to waste his talent.
I mean, yeah, you're on point with the athleticism and everything you said there. I'm also going to agree. I'm not buying top 15. I'm not buying top 20. I mean, I think in my mock, I've had him maxed out at 21 with the Patriots. And I know that's right on the edge. Oh, you said 15 to 20. You said 21. It's the same thing. It's more or less the same thing. But I think anything higher would have to be, like you said, a team with an established system and a penchant for developing guys. That's actually part of the reason why I have him going to New England, because we know the success that New England has with defensive linemen, edge rushers, linebackers. They develop those guys, and they can take clay like this and mold it into a Pro Bowler. We've seen it.
The only other team I could think that might pull the trigger would be Philadelphia, because they have 3 first-round picks, and to some extent you're willing to take chances with the second 2 first-round picks after you get the first one out of the way, because you have more opportunities just to take the shots. So I think Philadelphia is probably his ceiling if you're talking about Trayvon Walker.
And you know what? It's almost like we're professionals, because that, boys and girls, is what we call a prototype perfect segue into Nazir Nazi's question of who do you have the Eagles taking with our 3 first-round picks? Now, Nazir, for the record, I'm going to go on the record and saying I don't think they're going to keep these 3 first-round picks. I think one, maybe more of these first-round picks are going to be moved, if not for a quarterback, then make a move for another veteran or 2, make a splash. Because it's not often teams have 3 first-round picks or 4 of the top 50 picks or 51 picks. But they're in a great position. Now, I just did a mock draft, and I've been trying to have it posted, but again, I'm having issues posting it how I want it to be, because I like colors and I like it to be pretty, and I don't want it to just be a document. I want it to be aesthetically pleasing, and I'm having troubles making it pretty because I'm a perfectionist and I hate what I've seen so far. But that aside, they have 15, 16, and 19. I have them taking David Ojabo at 15th overall, the edge rusher from Michigan. Taking Trent McDuffie, the corner from Washington, at 16, which I think we pegged in our mock draft, the last one that we did. I saw no reason to change that, so I stuck with that. They do need help at the position, opposite Darius Slay. And I have them taking Zion Johnson at 19th overall, the offensive lineman from Boston College. He could play tackle, guard, and he played at center in the Senior Bowl and played well. And with Brooks retiring at guard, with no depth behind their 2 starting tackles in Lane Johnson and Mailata, Johnson's always getting hurt. And who's the other one? The offensive tackle that they had that they're going to get rid of. His name is
Dillard. Andre Dillard.
Andre Dillard. Yes, Washington State. He's on his way out. So they're going to need help at depth at tackle. They need a guard because Brooks is retiring. And they could even play him at center because Kelsey is a free agent and he's friggin' 100 years old. So he could either retire or just re-sign for a year and retire next year. And they'll need a center next year. But they need help along the offensive line. And in my mock, Trevor Penning wasn't on the board. Kenyon Green wasn't on the board. So unless they were going to go with Linderbaum, which I didn't do because I did that before, wanted to mix it up a little bit, Zion Johnson would be a great pick. So, but I got a Jabo McDuffie and Zion Johnson with their 3 picks. And a little special sprinkle on there for you. I have them at number 51 taking Chad Muma, the linebacker out of Wyoming, who has been a star thus far this offseason.
Yeah, I did a mock draft for Philadelphia not too long ago. I had them taking Jermaine Johnson at 15, Roger McCreary at 16, which is seeing more less and less likely. You're probably going to see more along the lines of McDuffie or maybe Andrew Booth at that point. I had them taking Jameson Williams at 19 to complement Devontae Smith, and then I had Jalen Petrie at 51.
Wow, perfect. So actually, I had Petrie dropping a little bit later in the second round, but we'll talk about that another time. With the D-line, one quick thing, D-line and edge, one quick thing each before we move on to linebackers. With the defensive line position, I have 2 ranked in my top 32. I have Trayvon Walker at 29 and Perrion Winfrey at 32. Devontae Wyatt is 33 and DeMarvin Leal's 34 and Jordan Davis is 35. So if I thought I needed to sort through some shit at receiver, I am absolutely going to have to sort through some stuff at D-line. That's a lot of talent in just a few picks. Which one of those guys do you see going highest come draft day? And which one of these guys do you think has the best potential, aside from Walker? Because I know we discussed Walker blowing it up. But aside from Walker, which one of these defensive line prospects can you see blowing up the combine and moving up boards?
I think it's going to be Devontae Wyatt because I know people are going to love Jordan Davis from his size, but Devontae Wyatt to me strikes a sense that he can be a defensive tackle who can rush the passer and rush the passer well and be more than simply a 2-down kind of guy like Jordan Davis. He's going to be able to play the run well. And frankly, I think his run defensibility was a little bit kind of obscured by the fact that he played with Jordan Davis on that defensive front in Georgia. And they've got another great player. I can't remember his name right now. They have another defensive tackle at Georgia right now. Probably is going to be a first-round pick next year. So they have a lot of talent on defensive front. So you can get to see Devontae Wyatt really get to enforce his will on games necessarily because you have so many other talented pieces along that defensive front. I think Wyatt's going to be the top interior defensive line picked. And truly his speed, his burst, and his twitch for his size are what we're going to push him over the top. That's what's going to make him potentially a first-round pick.
Now, and then for the edge position, which one of these second-tier guys, the Drake Jacksons, Majai Sanders, Cameron Thomas, Nick Bonito, Sam Williams, those guys, or even lower, someone else I haven't mentioned, which one of them do you see as a combine being a really important situation for them to excel and show their skills?
I think it's going to be, Kingsley Enagbare from South Carolina, I believe, because he has some question marks. He's got great arm length, and he's got 35-inch arms. He's shown the ability to bull rush with one arm before, but I think there's going to be some questions about his speed and his natural agility. He's not the bendiest guy in the world, so I think there's going to be some questions regarding the cone drills, regarding the 40 time. Those are going to be impactful to his draft stock.
I really want to see Arnold Ebiketie. I really want to see if this man's going to go out there and run like a 4.4 or something crazy. Because everything I've read is, in terms of athleticism, that he is one of the most explosive, one of the most athletic guys in the class, and that he's got a lot of fans around the league. He could very well rise to be a mid to late first-round pick. In fact, in my mock, I have him going in the first round, and I have him going to Buffalo, actually. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched to see him go in that range. Buffalo picks 25th, and I have him on my big board a little lower. He is in the 40s right now, number 41, right behind Logan Hall, but he could very well move up. My issues with him is his size, 6'2", 6'3", 230, 235, give or take. Not the biggest, not the best against the run. Definitely something you want to keep an eye on. But athletic talents like that don't drop on draft day. So if he shows out, he could very well make himself a lot of money. Let me see here. You know what? We're moving on to linebackers and show some love to, where am I? Here we go. Doing things. Bam. Betting.net. Head over now and see for yourself. Betting.net makes it easy to find all of the legal online casinos or sports books in your state. Head on over to betting.net. Linebackers and then defensive backs. We're almost done, folks. If you're sticking with us thus far, thank you. It's been a long show. We're pushing an hour and a half, an hour 25 minutes right now. Longest show we've done so far. Lots of information we're throwing your way. Thanks for sticking with us. Linebackers. Very unheralded position. Always has guys drop unless they're like the elite of the elite in every possible way, like a Kuechly, etc. These guys always seem to drop, like a Parsons. They always seem to drop for one reason or another. Dean's probably dropping because of his size. Is he going to be under 6 foot? Is he even going to be 200 pounds? It's real threatening. Lloyd is just floating around in the first round, 20 range, 25 range, depending on where you look online. Another one, is he going to be 230 pounds like he's listed, or is he going to come in at like 220 or something crazy like that? Brandon Smith, Christian Harris, Leo Chenal, Chad Muma, who's gotten love, like I mentioned earlier, moving on up in drafts, draft boards and mock drafts and such. Are we going to have any first round linebackers? Because I love Nakobe Dean. I have him 17th overall on my big board. I don't give a damn if he's 5'11 or 5'10. I don't care. I don't care at all. His tape is fire. He's right in coverage. I mean, yeah, he can get swallowed up in the run game. That'll happen when you're little. But, I mean, sideline to sideline speed, he reminds me of Jock, Jeremiah Koromora, who got drafted by the Browns in the second round. He dropped despite his physical talents because of his diminutive size. Is Dean going to drop? Is Lloyd going to rise? What's going on at the position, dude?
I don't know if Lloyd's going to rise. I feel comfortable saying Lloyd is probably more likely to be a first-round pick than Dean at this point. You have heard some rumblings dating back even at this point to the beginning of January regarding Nakobe Dean. Mm-hmm. I do think in a certain scheme where he has some big guys in front of him, where you're able to have a secure interior defensive line that's going to protect him at the second level, I think that's an ideal situation for him where he can be an impact player. And we've seen teams trend towards having these smaller linebackers geared towards pass coverage. It's been the trend around the NFL as a whole. So I don't think Dean is going to stand out for the wrong reasons in terms of his size. I think there will be a team that will be happy to take him at the back end of the first round or top of the second round. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. But I feel more comfortable in Devin Lloyd fitting in his traditional defense with his ability to play in zone, his arm length, his size. He can rush the passer, obviously do that well. He's certainly had plenty of ball production recently, good against the run, good at getting off of climbing offensive linemen. So I feel like he's going to be the more secure first-round pick, not necessarily because he's a better player than Nakobe Dean, but because he just projects the NFL a little bit easier than someone like Nakobe Dean. So I expect we'll have one first-round linebacker. I think Dean will probably fall to the second round. And just looking through the other guys out here, it's difficult. I mean, something like Leo Chenal from Wisconsin has a lot of really good production. There's a lot of stuff to like about what he's able to do. Well, I don't know if you put him in a traditional role of probably a 4-3 linebacker where he's going to end up. You know, I really don't know how it's going to translate to the NFL. And it's hard because I like him a lot. The production screams to me like a really good player, but I just don't know how he'll translate to the NFL per se. That's one that really is a question mark for me in terms of his ability to get done next level. Damon Clark from LSU, I think, could be maybe one of your traditional Mike linebackers in this class, along with the Devin Lloyd, perhaps. That's someone who intrigues me, but not until maybe round 3. Jojo Doman from Nebraska is your typical, I'll say 4-3 outside linebacker, weak side linebacker, coverage linebacker, essentially. He's going to be tremendous in coverage. He can play in the slot. He's going to be closer to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah kind of ability than most people are in this class. He's got good size too. Essentially kind of like safety size playing at linebacker. I think I could see some teams taking him potentially in the late second, early third round. You mentioned Chad Muma, who's got a lot of love recently. I'm trying to think who else. Quay Walker and Channing Tindall from Georgia. Those are two guys who have had a lot of love as well because they are tremendous at flowing sideline to sideline and making plays in the running game. I will have question marks and pass coverage for both of them, but in terms of flowing sideline to sideline, they are lockdown guys in the running game. One more player. Just one more. Brian Asamoah from Oklahoma. Tremendous in coverage. Really good. On the smaller side again, but again, we're trending towards that in the NFL. Mm-hmm. If you had to give me, say, Nakobe Dean in the first round at pick 25 versus Asamoah at pick 50, there would probably be a good number of people take Asamoah at 50 because of the fact that, he's not going to anchor you against the running game. He's not going to do that, but he's going to give you that coverage ability. And if you can avoid taking an off-ball linebacker in the first round and get someone of equal value in the second round, that might be the way to go. So Asamoah is going to get a lot of love.
Yeah, I really like Asamoah too. One name you didn't mention was Brandon Smith, the Penn State outside linebacker. He's one of the players that I really like at the position, and I have him right now at number 82 on my big board. He's got good size, good athleticism. I think he's someone who could rise I have like a third round grade on him right now. But I think he's one of those names that could rise. Troy Anderson from Montana State is another one. Demoyne Clark from LSU. He's got some fans around the league. Two things at the linebacker position before we move on. One, I want to talk a little bit about Christian Harris because his is a name that at the beginning of season, a lot of conversation about him as one of the top linebackers. Things kind of like went off a little bit during the season. I don't know. His fire wasn't as bright, I feel, as the season wore on. And then we get into the offseason. Nakobe Dean's getting love. Devin Lloyd's getting love. All these other guys, Leo Chenal's getting love. And then you're still not hearing much about Christian Harris. But on the low, I think Christian Harris can be a solid starting inside linebacker. I think he could be one of the he is one of the better linebackers in this class, and just another one of those guys where the tape, he's got size, he's got good closing speed, good burst, he can blitz, he doesn't bite too much on fakes or anything crazy like that, so misdirection doesn't mess him up. My only concerns are he's not a big hitter, not a good pass rusher. I mean, I'm reaching for some stuff.
Yeah, I think
this guy fit for you?
He's got the physical skills you want, per se. Like, you watch his explosiveness and his quickness to get after the quarterback at times or get after running back in the backfield. He's got that. My concerns are sometimes that hasn't translated to coverage right now. There are some coverage concerns there for me. Not tremendous, but we've seen guys been good in coverage and rely a lot on physical traits in college football and go to the NFL, and it just doesn't follow them sometimes for 2 or 3 years. And that could be like Christian Harris strikes me as that kind of guy who is going to go to the NFL and immediately struggle in coverage. Now, most linebackers do, to be fair. A lot of them do. But I have a feeling that could be him potentially at the next level. I think when I watch him, he doesn't look – he's explosive, don't get me wrong. But he doesn't look like he's truly the size he's listed at, per se, like the weight-wise. Yeah. So I am a little bit worried about the run game potentially. Like someone like Quay Walker, he strikes me as a little bit bigger, a little bit sturdier against the running game than someone like Christian Harris. So I could see potentially having some issues, maybe getting off blockers at the next level. But like I said, explosive, quick, speed. I mean, he's got, like, in terms of just straight line speed, he's going to test really well. And I think he's got the agility to do really well in that area as well. So I'm back and forth on him, really. I could go either way. I could see him being like a solid second-round pick to being a late third-round pick, anywhere in that range. Probably day 2 guy, but I guess you really can't rule out falling to the top of the 4th round, considering there are some rare linebackers in this class that teams are really going to like.
Yeah, for me, it's a matter of maybe that he's boring. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's good,
maybe,
and you know what he brings to the table, but he doesn't really stand out like you really want. Like Dean stands out, Lloyd stands out, Chenal stands out. he doesn't really. Maybe that's part of it because he's solid. He's a starter capable guy, and he's probably going to be a early second round pick, second round pick latest, based on his talent alone. But maybe it's just a bit of like ho hum, it doesn't excite you kind of a thing. One more thing before we move on from linebackers and get to the DBs and put a bow on this pre-combine, the combine preview, is I want to see what Leo Chenal tests out because he's a big guy, and coming into the combine, he reminds me a little bit of like a Brian Cushing type in that he's big, he's athletic, he doesn't have long arms. He's not going to be, someone that you look to open up the inside of the game, inside of the offensive line, be a blitzer as an inside linebacker. He's not going to bounce inside to outside. He's strictly, I think, an inside linebacker in a 3-4 front. I want to see what he tests. I think the 40 is going to be huge for him. I think the vertical will help show us if he's explosive enough. And I want to see the 20-yard shuttle. That'll show his hip flexibility, his burst, balance, all important for the linebacker position. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And right now, he's outside my top 100. Good combine could push him up and help solidify any questions I have about his athletic ability. Now, let's move on. Final one. We're an hour and 36 minutes in. Sam, how are you feeling? Feeling good?
Yeah, I gotta clock into work after this. I got like 2 hours of work I gotta do after this.
Oh my god!
I'm really enjoying this because it's good. It's a precursor to having to go to work. So
yeah, but you got to make some money. All right, so
no, I'm good.
Don't
worry about it.
Let's put a bow on this. All right, let's go to the DBs, and we haven't really given defensive backs the kind of love that they might normally get, and I want to do that now. All right, because as with receivers, as with the running backs, as with the quarterbacks, we've talked about this a lot. It's what's your flavor, okay? Baskin Robbins, they got 31 flavors. You got to pick one, all right? Everyone's got one that they like, and they got one that they hate. So now with the defensive backs, give me one of your prospects that you love and one guy that a lot of people like that you don't like, a la similar to your Wilson earlier at receiver.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to have too many guys that I hate. I'm going to say this. Tariq Wallen from UTSA, I know he's getting a lot of love because he's going he's got very good length and he's going to test like crazy. But I'm hearing like 4.2s in terms of speed is what they're expecting from him. So he's going to run and he was on Bruce Feldman for the Athletic does a freaks list every year. He was towards the top of that freaks list. So he's been on the radar as a really good athlete, just pure athleticism is through the roof. I don't love it. I don't. I know there's some places like the Draft Network has him as maybe like a top 40 prospect. I just don't see it. I don't see it in terms of his game. I just don't. I know the athleticism is there, but I don't think it translates on the field per se into a snap-by-snap basis. So I'm not a huge fan of Tariq Wallen. I think he'll fly up boards after this weekend because he's gonna be insane. His numbers are gonna be ridiculous. He might run the fastest time out of any guy at the combine. As far as for someone I love, Joshua Williams from a small school named I think Fayetteville State is how you say it, or Fayetteville State. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, Joshua Williams to me, good arm length. He was at the Senior Bowl. Wasn't a superb standout, but none of the corners really were. I think he didn't hurt himself in any way. And frankly, I think he's rising from being a guy who was viewed as maybe a 6th round pick to a guy now is probably going to be the late 4th, early 5th round. Not a superstar by any means, but someone who I personally would love for Pittsburgh to pick up at some point along the line. That's the kind of guy I would like on my team, frankly. Just watching him, and he destroyed competition. You would expect that though for someone like him with his size and athleticism. He clocked in at I think over 21 miles per hour at the Senior Bowl, so he can move as well. He's someone who I like quite a bit, and I think could end up being a 4th round pick when all is said and done. And the reason I'm highlighting him is because he started off this whole process being viewed as maybe a 7th round kind of guy. Okay.
Yeah, I mean Fayetteville. I mean, you're reaching out there, man. You're going far. You're going far down that board.
Yeah, I mean there are a lot of confusing players in this draft class. There are a lot of guys who I look at and say, really good in college. I have no idea if it will translate to the NFL or not.
Joshua Williams, Fayetteville State, 6'3", 197. We're pulling out names from Fayetteville State, people. This I don't know if you're going to get this anywhere else. All right, let's show some I hope we're saying it right. Fayetteville. I don't know. We're going to show them some love right there. I hope I'm saying this right. I feel so bad.
I know. I butcher names all the time. I feel terrible. I'll even listen to names ahead of time to like try to get it down in my head. I'll listen to like announcers say it on repeat, and I'll go and be, yeah, we're talking about Josh Woods from. I'll be gone. I have no idea.
Yep. That's just one of those things. But we're trying here, folks. We're trying. Yeah. But all right. So let me ask you a quick question. Mario Goodrich. Yeah, I like Mario Goodrich. I like his size. I like his physicality. One of your Clemson boys. Tell me about him. I got him at 93 on my board. Am I bugging? Is that too low?
No, you're right on. I have him at 88. So we're in sync basically on that one. I think he is potentially a second round pick. I would lean more towards third round, if I'm being honest. But I could see him potentially rising to the second round. Just a really good corner. If you watched him, it sounds funny saying you watch him in the Cheez-It Bowl at the end of the season for Clemson. He made some really big plays down the stretch. Been a really reliable corner in coverage. And frankly, I think he is more consistent than Andrew Booth. Now, Andrew Booth has the higher end plays. He's got the higher end athleticism, certainly. That makes him a first round caliber player. But I think Goodrich throughout the year was just more steady Eddie. He didn't give up the big plays that Booth did at times in coverage. Booth sometimes ended up on the ground, kind of slipping around a little bit. Goodrich did not have that happen to him at all. So you're looking for just a very stable cornerback that's going to be a calming presence for your defense. I think Goodrich is the guy. Now, testing-wise, is he going to blow anyone away? Probably not. I think he's going to be in the middle of the package. He'll qualify for everyone's board. He's not going to get knocked off for any athleticism testing. But in terms of just, like I said, someone who's going to be a steady presence for you, a solid star, never a Pro Bowler, but just a solid presence on your team, Mario Goodrich to me is a high-end third-round pick, if not a low-end second-round pick.
Dude, I think he would excel as a zone defender. I think a team
he'll be excellent, yeah.
I think a team like maybe Seattle or LA or someone like that
maybe
who runs
Indy.
a lot. Yeah, so a team that runs a lot of zone would really like a guy like him because he can hold his own out there. He's got good enough burst to get a jump on the ball, make some plays. He's a good tackler. He's not afraid to get sticky with it. So, you look for that, especially with the different like college concepts that NFL offenses are running now with all the bubble screens and the quick wide receiver screens and the quick screens over the middle. There's a lot of that, and you need guys to come up and you need guys to make tackles. There's not enough corners that like to mix it up. What about the safety position? The safety position is another one, all muddled up, guys all over the board. We know Kyle Hamilton's the best. We know Kyle Hamilton's one of the best defenders in the class, regardless of position. But Daxton Hill, Jaquan Brisker, Jalen Petrie, these are names that are being thrown around as being in the mix for that safety 2 spot. One of these guys or multiple of these guys could be first-round picks. After Kyle Hamilton, who's your next up?
My next up was, I think, who was it? It was Jalen Petrie. My next up is Jalen Petrie right now. Again, I've seen him most recently because of the Senior Bowl. I got to watch a lot of him over that time period. Daxton Hill to me is going to be a somewhat similar player. I don't think he's going to be as physical as Jalen Petrie. And I think he might be better at playing as like a true outside corner. He's not going to play true outside corner. But I think Daxton Hill has the potential to be more of a cornerback-based safety player who's going to get a lot of time in the slot.
Yeah,
could potentially play outside if you need him to. Versus Jalen Petrie, who, he can play deep, can play in the box certainly as well. But I think Daxton Hill, you're going to try to avoid keeping him in the box. You're going to keep him more in the slot or at deep safety. Jalen Petrie, you're going to play in the slot or more in the box as well as deep safety. But that's just a little bit of a difference for me. I feel more comfortable with Jalen Petrie being almost like a safety / slot corner / linebacker, while Daxton Hill to me is more of a slot corner, deep safety / outside corner kind of guy. A little bit different in terms of their games, but still equally highly versatile, which is why someone like Jaquan Brisker, who I do really like, is probably going to drop down the board a little bit because while he's really good, he's more of a too high safety, someone who can come down the box and make a big play. He's got the X factor as a defender, but not pure sideline to sideline range, and definitely not as versatile as someone like Petrie or Hill.
And are there any? Well, before I ask that question, I'll say for me, I got Daxton Hill as my safety too. He's at 42 overall on my board, mostly for the reasons that you mentioned. The fact that I believe he can play slot corner, and he did play slot corner for Michigan, and I think he can do a little bit of everything. Maybe not anything truly elite, but he'll see the field and he'll be a good starter. I like Brisker. I like Petrie. After those guys, give me like a third, fourth, mid-round kind of a name at the safety position that you're looking at to see what they do in this combine and after leading up to the draft.
Yeah, if we're talking about third, fourth round, I think someone like Kirby Joseph from Illinois would be interesting. He's got a lot of really good ball production. I think he's a really good ball hawk. The question is going to be, he's got just 1 year production. That's going to be the big deal for him. Two guys I'm curious. I'll admit, I haven't seen a ton of yet, but do intrigue me. Tyson Anderson from Toledo, I believe, played cornerback for a lot of his college career, but is going to be viewed probably as a safety in the NFL from what I've heard so far. And then Marquise Bell from Florida A&M. And I'll admit, I have not seen the most of Marquise Bell, but the guy's listed at 6'3", 205, and generally strikes, from what I've seen so far, strikes me as the kind of guy who could be that if you're looking for a box safety per se, which is not my cup of tea. I don't love drafting box safeties, frankly, because it doesn't strike me as the most versatile kind of player. But he's going to be really good for that. I mean, he's going to be really good for that. He plays a little bit like a linebacker to some extent. Something like Marquise Bell. At the very minimum, you're getting a high-end special team player. At best, you're getting a starting box safety caliber guy.
Again, two names pulling out of left field. I like the Tyson Anderson one because Anderson actually is one of the better athletes in this class. And Anderson, I don't like his hips in coverage, but at least for straight line speed, Anderson could test out really, really well. I actually have him listed as a corner. He's more of a late round kind of guy for me. But he's definitely a name to watch. I'm actually very glad you pulled that name out. I'm gonna go with Leon O'Neal, safety from Texas A&M, and Brian Cook, safety from Cincinnati. I'll start with O'Neal. For me, O'Neal's more of a box guy, and he has experience playing in the box. He can cover tight ends. He's got good size. Questions with his getting off blocks. He's not good in the run game. He can get a little fumbly in his back pedal, and he's not a natural coverage safety. That's what, like you said, box safety is not that valuable. They kind of got to be pigeonholed. But he's experienced, and I like his game. I like the tape, and he doesn't stand out like some of these other names at the top, like Hill, so on and so forth, like Brisker. But it's a name to watch. I want to see what he does, how he also tests. I don't think he's going to be a blazer. I'm not expecting a 4.4 or anything like that. But if he could do like 4.5, I think that would be a win. And then for Cook, I mean, dude, how crazy is this Cincinnati secondary? Bryant,
Gardner,
yep.
Kobe Bryant.
Yep. Kobe Bryant, like I said, a corner, Gardner, Cook. I mean, that secondary is something special. I'm excited to see what these Cincinnati guys do at the next level. But Brian Cook, middle round guy. No one's really talking about him so much, and I think that's foolish. I like what I've seen on tape. I think he's someone who could rise as things go on. I don't have him in my top 100. He is right on the outside looking in. But I want to see what he does here too, because if he's another one, if he can run in like the 4.5 range, I think that really helps that stock, because he doesn't really have that much weaknesses either for me. Explosiveness you can't really teach. He won't be able to do much there, but he hits. He's physical. He's smooth out there. He's got a good frame to grow as an NFL safety. And I think he's got good versatility. I don't think he's pigeonholed as like a box safety or something like that. I think he can do a little bit of everything too. He's another one who I think you see him in like third, fourth, fifth round range. Could be a nice plug and play starter later on in the season, like these tight ends I was talking about earlier.
If I had to mention one more defensive back, going back to the corner spot for 1 second.
Yeah.
Zion McCollum from Sam Houston State. Was at the Senior Bowl, 6'2", 202 pounds. When I watched my tape, and granted, you have to understand it's lesser competition he's going against. This guy is moving to the ball 2 or 3 seconds before anyone else on the defense is reacting. Like his ability to read what's going on in the offense and react, as opposed to the guys around him. Again, lesser competition. You have to understand that. But he is making a play on the ball before anyone else on the defense recognizes where the ball is going. So I think that's something that stood out to me immediately. He is moving a full 2 or 3 steps quicker than anyone else out there. And even on the offense, I mean, the ball on several screenplays, he blows up. He just comes downhill. The ball gets to the receiver's hands. The receiver can't even look upfield, and he's already making a play on it. He's already making the tackle. So I think someone like him will be interesting because it's a big jumping competition, but he's got the size necessarily. And he's going to have enough speed, not like high-end caliber speed, but enough speed to get by at that role. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up in the NFL.
Dude, Sam Houston, Fayetteville State, UTSA, Toledo. I mean, if you're an NFL draft fan, you need to watch this show. If you know people who like the NFL draft, you need to tell them about this show because we give you names, we do those deep dives. We're pulling out like Tyson Anderson, dude. You friggin' kidding me? Like, who's talking about that, man, besides us right now? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what we do. I like that. And keep this energy going. Is there anything else you want to touch on about the scouting combine?
No, I think we covered just about everything.
God, love the draft. I'm so excited. And I'm excited for next week's show so we can talk about the scouting combine again. And it might be a mock draft Monday. I know how much our people like mock drafts. So it might be a mock draft Monday, a post-combine. Everything's fresh. We're feeling a little squirrely. We'll see what goes on. But for now, we're going to wrap this up. Sam, you're on Twitter and you have a website. Give us both of those.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Sam_Teets33. My pin tweet will link you right to my newsletter. It's on Substack. You just go to substack.com and type in Sports Talk with Sam Teets. You can find all my content. I'm doing mock drafts, obviously any kind of draft content, big boards, prospect rankings, as well as offseason needs and offseason breakdowns for teams and some other NFL content. So feel free to go check all that stuff out.
All the things. All the stuff. I cannot wait to see the post-combine rankings. I want to see a mock draft. I'm a fiend. So give Sam a follow. Check out his website. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter at DB Talking Sports. D as in Dan, B as in Bob. Give us a follow. Give us a like. Share. Send us a DM. If you have anything, any questions, any comments, any concerns, leave them in the comments. Give us a follow. Send us a DM. We'll respond. That's what we do. I want to give a little more love to betting.net. Find a place that's best. The best place to bet for you. Betting.net offers expert and user reviews for every online sportsbook and casino in your state. So head on over to betting.net. They also sponsor The Grueling Truth, where legends speak. That means us, Sam.
Yeah, we're legendary, of course.
Goddamn right. Say it loud, say it proud, brother. For Sam Teets, I'm Dan Kornhauser. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you guys